Having looked through my albums on vinyl and the few singles on vinyl, I thought I'd now have a look at my CD collection. Now a lot of these, like the Kinks, the whole series of albums were re-released. I don't know why they were done in the way they were, in as much as you can see from this is the first Rolling Stones album. And it's also got England's newest hitmakers, which is how it appeared when it was released in America. So this will be an American version. Now in the American versions, most of the tracks are the same, maybe the exception of one, maybe two on each. But it certainly covers most of the songs, and those I don't get picked up on other albums. If not on 40 Licks, which gets the whole lot, of course. Right, so this was the first one. This was released in 1964, both in the UK and in America. Got to number 1 in England and only number 11 in America. Right, the second one. Again, this is an American issue. There were EPs issued with these tracks on. But in America, this album was released with the 12 tracks on. Because one of the Rolling Stones in England was 5x5, which includes one instrumental as well as some other tracks. The 2120 South Michigan Avenue being the instrumental. Again, most of the stuff is covered elsewhere or picked up from other albums. So in some areas I have the tracks on these EPs and also on albums. The Rolling Stones Now. A third of the American releases. Otherwise known in the UK as Out of Our Heads. This is the second album actually. Rolling Stones Now, otherwise known as the Rolling Stones number 2 in the UK. Different cover as you can see, and just about the same tracks as before. Starting off with Everybody Needs Somebody, including Little Red Rooster, because on some of the albums they put in tracks which weren't actually on albums before, but they sort of included them as bonus tracks. Out of Our Heads, as you can see, it's a UK version. So now we're getting into copies of UK albums, vinyl albums. Once again, a nice selection of tracks, as I mentioned on the vinyls. I went through some of the tracks. Quite different from the British Aftermath. Cover is way off different. Not as good either, I don't think. This was released in '66, the same as it was in Britain. It actually got to number 2 in the American charts as well as number 1 here. You see Painted Black got added on to this one. Between the Buttons in the bottom corner, UK version. As with most of these earlier ones, particularly there was British and UK ones, and as with most British artists in the invasion time, they were playing catch up in America to start with. This got to number 3 in 1967 in the UK, but it got to number 2 in America, so America was really getting in tune with the Stones at this time. As as I mentioned on the vinyl ones, no real songs that stand out as single releases. Now this one, Her Majesty's, or their Satanic Majesty's Request. It's a sort of Sgt. Pepper's, isn't it? But of all the albums that they made, this one to me is the most disappointing. There's only one or two tracks on it I like. I don't mind 2000 Light Years from Home, or She's a Rainbow, but the others don't particularly stand out for me. Next is Beggar's Banquet. Very much getting into English versions now. That's the one where Sympathy for the Devil came from. And Street Fighting Man. There's a few other songs on there were really, really good ones, even though they weren't singles. Then we're on to Let It Bleed. Rather unusual cover, cakes on top of records, on top of boxes, and on top of a record going round. Well, that's the theory anyway. So, Let It Bleed. You can see the track Midnight Rambler, Gimme Shelter, probably the most well-known ones. And the first live album, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, the Rolling Stones in concert, and there's Charlie on the front. You can see it's got Jumpin' Jack Flash, Carol, Stray Cat Blues, Love in Vain, Midnight Rambler, Sympathy for the Devil, Live With Me, Little Queenie, Honky Tonk Woman and Street Fighting Man. All live. This is Metamorphosis. It's not a new release album as such, it's more of like a compilation at the time in the 80s, and has some tracks from various sources. Out of Time's the first one, and Heart of Stone are probably the best known, but there's quite a few other titles on there. Then we come to Sticky Fingers. The proper Sticky Fingers, but of course you can't get the zip down on these CDs, so I suppose that's not quite as good. Brown Sugar Time, Wild Horses. They're probably the main two songs on that album. I see the price on there was normally $16.99, sale price $4.99. Yep, Stones albums are rather funny in as much as if you go in the shops to try and buy them these days, these CDs, it can still be very expensive, but occasionally you get discounted prices. This one's Steel Wheels, Exile in Main Street. I've got this twice, I think, actually. I bought it, then bought it again. Getting out of control. Tumbling Dice on this one. Goat's Head Soup. Looking through the tracks on that one, Angie. So coming more up to date. Still quite a way back though, really. It's Only Rock and Roll. Gone to great lengths to do the cover of this album. also got Ain't Too Proud to Beg on this one. Sort of a Tamla one, isn't it? I always thought it a bit strange that they did that. Some Girls. We're now into 1978. There are a lot of compilations during this time, but I didn't bother with them, not really that bothered. We've got Miss You on this one, which was the main hit. Beast of Burden, maybe. Emotional Rescue. This album to me is always makes me recall the album with Mick Jagger singing in a very high-pitched voice. Again, not much like Satanic. Well, it's better than Satanic, but I'm not so keen on that as I would be with what I call the normal Jagger voice. Emotional Rescue, of course, was a single from it. Tattoo You. No, I didn't pay £21.99, but it has started me up on it.